All right, guys, today is September 10th. It's a Thursday, and this is your social studies lesson for the day. So if you look at our agenda here, we're going to start with our circle warm-up. So if you go open Google Classroom, I have it posted in there. It looks like this, and it says, using the picture, which is attached here, make an observation about the geography around the settlement of Jamestown. And number 2, using the picture, make an observation about the design or layout of the settlement of Jamestown. So the picture looks like this. So the first question asks about geography, which means the land. What is the land like around the settlement? So look at the ocean, look at the surrounding earth, and make an observation about that, make a claim. What is the geography like around Jamestown? And number 2 asks about the layout of Jamestown. So literally how the town is designed. So you see, why is it in this triangle shape? Why do you think it was designed like this? Make an observation. Why do you think it was designed like this? So that is your circle warm-up for today. When you're done with that, make sure you hit the turn-in button. Then we are getting into our guided notes. Okay. On Google Classroom, I have these posted. There is a Google Doc, and there is a Google Slides. The slides are for you to go through later if you miss class. If you're in class, we go through the slides together. But at this point, you're going to want to open up the Google Doc, which looks like this. It's titled Notes, How Did We Get Here? Now this is what our guided notes are going to look like. So if you see this little highlighted portion here, these are blanks that I want you to fill in. So basically on my notes, I'm going to have words that are underlined, and those words are going to correspond to little highlighted blanks here on your guided notes. So that's where you type those words. Okay. So get this doc open, and then I'm going to navigate over to the slideshow so you guys can follow along with me. So here is our presentation. So today we're talking about this presentation is titled "How Did We Get Here?" because we're talking about how we as Americans got here in the first place. How did the colonies start? How did the U.S. start in the first place? So our essential question today is: what events from world history led to the settling of America? So that's your first blank on your notes. It says essential question. Type the essential question below. So I want you to type that question right there. What events from world history led to the settling of America? And the reason you should care about this is the nation had to start somewhere, and it's important to know our origins. It's like if you were going to see a movie, but you missed the first 20 minutes. You'd be missing pieces. You wouldn't really know what was going on, right? So we want to study where we came from so we can take a better look and understand better how we got where we are. Okay. So if you need to pause at any point, feel free to do so. I'm going to move on. So how did we get here? The rise of the 13 colonies. First, we're going to talk about the discovery of America. So obviously, we're going to talk about our boy Columbus. Now, he sailed in 1492 and discovered America. This is the European discovery of America. A lot of people say that he was not the first person to discover America, and that is correct. He was not, but this is the first. He's the first European to really discover and make the presence of America known to the rest of Europe. Okay, he went to spread Catholicism, which is kind of like a version of Christianity, and but mostly the reason he went was to find resources and to make money and to get famous. Now, Columbus was Portuguese, but the Portuguese king and queen did not want to fund his trip. So instead, he's sent by Spain. Okay. And he goes over and he lands in the Caribbean, and he bounces around the Caribbean and he finds gold, and he brings that back to Europe, which makes Europe very excited because they want gold, they want money. So he lands here in the Caribbean, he bounces around, gets a bunch of gold, and he ships it back to Spain. Okay. So we get back to Europe. Here's Spain right here. Now England, which is near Spain and Portugal, Portugal's like right here, and here's Spain. England sees the treasure that these two countries are bringing back from their voyages. Spain is sending adventurers over to America. Portugal is sending ships and has the trade routes to India, and so they're making a ton of money. And they're like, man, we really wouldn't want in on that action. So they're like, excuse us, old chaps, might we join in your game of riches? And Spain's like, no, you Protestant perros. If you try, we'll use our riches to destroy you. And then England is sad. So we have Spanish conquistadors. These are basically conquerors. They go over and they land in the Caribbean, and they steal gold from the natives, which are the Aztecs and the Incas. They basically end up wiping out these different people. And so they steal their gold and they enslave them and they bring them back. Portugal, on the other hand, controlled the Indian Ocean, basically, which is over off to the right of the screen over here, over on the other side of Africa, and they also controlled all the trade routes to and from there. So England couldn't ship this way because Portugal basically wouldn't let them. So Portugal was controlling all the land, or all the trade routes that were going down and around Africa, and bringing them back a bunch of money too. Now, I keep pointing to Spain. Spain is here. Portugal is like right next to it, so they're both in the same area here. All right, moving on. Now, also to remind you, all these underlined words, these are underlined words that you need to be filling in on your guided notes. So next, we're going to get into a little problem-solving activity here. So here's the scenario. Okay, Spain has a massive navy. That means they have a ton of ships that are designed for war. They're designed for war. Okay, they have this massive navy, biggest navy in the world at this point. Okay, and they've claimed the area around the Caribbean and South America. Basically, all the places that their conquistadors landed, they've established settlements, and they've enslaved a bunch of natives, and they're making money and stealing gold and all these things from their settlements. So they control that area, and they have this massive navy to ship and protect the gold back and forth, to make sure that it gets back to England safely, back to Spain safely, specifically. Sorry. And they're using the resources that they're stealing and taking from the Americas to build even more ships to make themselves even more powerful. Okay. England wants resources too, whether it's gold or natural resources, because England is pretty small. They've expanded a lot at this point, and they're running out of resources. They want in on these resources. So I want you to solve England's problem. So at this point in the video, pause, and on your note sheet, it says, how would you solve England's problem? And that has a little highlighted blank. I want you to pause it here, think about it, and figure out what you would do if this was the situation. How do you solve England's problem? And there's not a right or wrong answer to this. There's a couple of different ideas you can have. Okay. I'm going to move on, but if you need to pause, that's totally fine. Here we go. So here's what actually happens. England runs into this problem, and also Holland and France are up in here as well, and they are running into the same problem. They can't get to the Americas because of Spain and their massive navy. So Spain controls South America and all of the Caribbean here, right? So this area. So England and Holland and France basically get smart, and they start sending people to North America. Now, Spain has a large navy, but it's not large enough to cover all of this area. And so if there are Spanish ships in the north, there are much less ships than there would be in the Caribbean and in the south. There's less Spanish influence. So England and Holland and France are fairly successful at this. They send their colonists over here and begin settling North America. Okay, so that is how America was discovered. Now we're going to get into the ideas, the reasons why people started coming over here in the first place. Okay, so first thing I want you to do is define the word liberty. And if you need to pause the video and look it up, that is totally fine. You're welcome to do so. But whatever definition you write down, I would like it to be in your own words, so don't copy and paste. Define the word liberty. Pause the video here for a second, and then we'll move on. Okay, so liberty. It's a simple definition is the power to act as you please. The power to act as you please. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the ideas that were going on in the world right now. There was this thing in Europe going on called the Reformation. And the Reformation was basically Catholicism, which is a religion, was pretty much the main religion up until this point. And the Catholics follow the Pope. Okay, but at this point in the Reformation, Protestants came around. Protestants are basically another version of Christianity, who did not want to follow the Pope. So the Reformation gave people this idea that no man is above another man in relation to God. They didn't want to listen to the Pope. They were like, we're all people and we're all equal under God. We shouldn't have to answer to one person who is the person who communicates with God. That's not something we should have to do. All men are equal under God. So we shouldn't have to report to one person. As you can see in the comic, it says, this is what I say to the Pope's law. I obey only God. And he's burning the Pope's law, right? And some people in the background are saying, hey, good point. We shouldn't have to follow any man, right? We should. It's between us and God. We don't have to follow anybody. And this led to some other rumblings, some other thoughts. People are like, well, if people are equal under God, shouldn't we be equal under the government as well? Do we have to obey the king? Why should the king be over us, right? So this Reformation led to the same ideas in government. Should it be true in government that no man is above another man? Should all men be equal in government? Should there be a king? Like, people started asking these questions. Okay. So this period of time, these things are called the Reformation and the Enlightenment. Okay. The Reformation gave people the idea that no man is above another in relation to God. And I'm going to direct your attention to the underlined words again. These are the words that I want you to copy down into your notes. This led to the idea that the same was or should be true for government, right? That no man is above another in relation to government or God. Okay. So there were these philosophers and thinkers like John Locke and Thomas Hobbes, and they were behind a lot of these ideas, and they began to write about them and discuss them and spread it to the populace. And basically the ideas that they put together essentially were liberty, the power to do as you choose, right? The power to be equal to everyone else. There's no one that is more than you. Everyone is equal. So these ideas, the reason we're talking about the Reformation and the Enlightenment, these ideas they eventually become the ideals that the 13 colonies are founded on. The whole reason that we end up going to war with England, the whole reason we end up fighting the Revolutionary War, is to defend our liberty and defend this idea that we should have the power to do as we choose. Okay. And step 3, we're going to talk about the settlers. So, like, literally, who came over and who were the first people to come over and settle North America. So, first 2 settlements we're going to talk about are Roanoke and Jamestown. Now, the people who settled in Roanoke and in Jamestown basically came for economic reasons. Economic means like money and business, right? They came to make money, like, for example, the gold that Columbus came back with, and the gold that the Spanish conquistadors were coming back with. Okay, so when these people got here, they didn't expect to have to work. They thought they were going to show up and find gold and then bring the gold back to Europe, and they were just going to be rich. They thought it was going to be super simple, right? Because honestly, it was fairly easy for the Spanish. That's kind of what happened in the South. So they were hoping that the same thing was going to happen to them. Instead, when they got here, they did not find gold, and they were kind of stranded. They were like, okay, well, we're here and there's no gold, and now what do we do? And so they were basically forced to live off the land, which is hard work. So they faced hard work. There were food shortages. Living conditions were dangerous. There were predators. There were Indians. There was just a lot of things that threatened them in this new living situation. They're literal months across the sea. So if they don't have something or they need something that they forgot, it's not like they can pop across there and get it. They had to make it. So things were dangerous for them, and many of the settlers ended up dying. They went through a time that they called the starving time. And so of the 500 settlers that were there, 440 of them ended up dying, whether it was from starvation or the elements. Okay. So I'm going to read this quote real quick. This is by Captain George Percy, and he was there. There were never Englishmen left in a foreign country in such misery. Our food was but a small can of barley, sod and water, for 5 men a day. Our men night and day groaning in every corner of the fort, most pitiful to hear. Some departing out of the world many times 3 or 4 in a night. In the morning their bodies trailed out of their cabins like dogs to be buried. Now this is Pocahontas. Pocahontas was an Indian tribe. They were called the Powhatan. That's her tribe. It's showing John Smith starring, and this is not historical. All right. So we talked about Roanoke and Jamestown. Now we're going to talk about Plymouth. John Winthrop was one of the founders of Plymouth. And he said, "We shall be as a city upon a hill. The eyes of all people are upon us." So this is a quote from the Bible. He says he wants to be a city upon a hill, meaning he wants everyone's eyes to be on them. He wants to be an example to everybody. He wants people to see his city and be like, "Oh, that's where I want to live. That's a good place." And this is the quote it was taken from. Jesus said, "You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden." So the settlers in Plymouth consisted of the Pilgrims and Puritans. These settlers, unlike the other ones from Jamestown and Roanoke, who came for gold, these settlers came for religious reasons. So they were not welcome in England. We talked about the Reformation. There's a lot of new religious ideas that are going around, and the ideas that the Pilgrims and Puritans had were not welcome in England, so which is why they came over here to have religious freedom. So unlike Jamestown and Roanoke, the settlers coming to Plymouth expected to work. They didn't come here to get rich quickly. They were coming to stay, right? So they end up bringing their entire families with them, and they plan on staying for good. So that came. They came more prepared. Basically, they had better equipment. They brought their families. They had more people. They were ready to work. And even then, even though these settlers were more prepared, a large number of them still ended up dying because of the environment. It was a dangerous environment. It was hard work. They ended up landing further north than they expected, so they were facing the cold. A lot of different reasons. So to wrap up, despite the rough starts that the settlements had, they began to grow. Even Jamestown starts prospering. Roanoke, on the other hand, we'll learn about next week. Roanoke basically disappears, and we're not sure what happened to it. But despite the rough start, these settlements begin to grow. America had vast amounts of land, had natural resources galore, and going there, you had freedom unlike anywhere else in Europe. Okay, so there was a lot of appeal to coming across to North America, despite the dangers. And even though that they didn't find gold in the north like the Spanish, the English king began to see value in these colonies. He started to see the resources that they could provide, and the source of income that they could provide, and the source of taxation that they could provide. So when he saw his first couple colonies becoming successful, he started to sponsor more. Sponsor means like he gave people money to come over here. He's like, "Hey, go, I'm going to give you this money, go form a colony, and you'll be under my control, but I'm giving you the money to start it." That's what sponsoring means. And before too long, there were 13 colonies and the start of a new world. So you'll see at the very bottom of your notes, there are 2 reflection questions. Pause the video at this point. I do want you to answer those questions. It says, number 1, it says, the first settlers came to the New World for different reasons. What reasons did we hear about today? So why did they come in the first place? Number 2 says, which of the reasons for number 1 do you think would lead to a more successful colony, and why? And don't forget to answer that why. I want you to answer in complete sentences and answer all parts of the question, please. Now this is a wrap for our notes today. There's one more thing I wanted to talk about in the video. Look at our daily agenda. It was the Mastery Connect test. Now I know a lot of you guys were messaging me and emailing me saying you were having issues with the test. Some of you guys didn't have any issues and completed it. So for those of you who completed it, I appreciate it. For those of you who did not, for those of you who are having issues, I don't know what the problem was. I double checked on my end and the test is posted. So maybe there was issues going on with the website with Mastery Connect. So what I would like you to do today is please, if you do not complete it, double check, make sure it's on there, guys. Just follow the instructions from the video yesterday. The video tells you everything you need to do. Log in, and if it didn't show up for you yesterday, try again, because like I said, it might have been Mastery Connect having issues. So log into Mastery Connect and please complete that assessment. It is a do your best kind of assessment. You are going to receive points for it, and we're just giving you guys this test to see where you guys are at with certain pieces of information. Okay. So if you have not taken that test yet, please do so. That wraps up our class for today. It is September 10th. Thursday, and appreciate you guys coming. Don't forget to be awesome. Have a good day.